Hi, this is Matt Donegan, Business Spotlight series. I'm here with Hamish. Hamish, tell me about you. Tell me about your business, please.
Well, firstly, I need to apologize. I don't usually join video chats indoors wearing sunglasses, but I got a little bit of an eye infection. So you're going to have to live with the glasses. Hopefully, it's not too much of a barrier.
Hamish,
Um,
that's fine. I'm used to talking to Bono all the time, and he does that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm doing my Bono impression today. Absolutely. Um, I didn't have a burning ambition from sort of teenage years to be an entrepreneur or to run multiple businesses. It very much kind of found me, and it was my passion that drove me into becoming a founder and director of different companies. I had quite a fairly extraordinary start to my career. I wanted to work in film and television. I worked in advertising, commercials. I worked on some short films, some music videos, and I got an opportunity to work for Guy Ritchie, the filmmaker. I ended up working in their private residence. He was married to Madonna at the time. After about a year of working with Guy, I ended up transitioning to work for Madonna. And so in that time, I worked on the Sticky and Sweet tour. She was recording an album down at studios in Barnes. And I got to travel a little bit as well. So I got my first trip to Los Angeles as part of that. And it set me on maybe a rocket fueled early start to my career. The groundbreaking moment for me was, I'd had a theatrical background. Um, I'd been in uh, I'd been in an opera when I was 12 years old.
Wow.
Wagner's Lohengrin at the Colosseum, big, big, heavy duty, heavy hitter. And I'd studied acting, and so it had given me an idea around performance. I saw a performance by a company called Punch Drunk. They've had a show that's run in New York for a decade called Sleep No More. The show I saw was called Mask of the Red Death at Battersea Power Station. And what was so unique about that was that you walked into this building, and rather than sort of sitting down in your seat and letting the performance happen in front of you as a sort of passive observer of the entertainment, you became part of the experience. And the more you gave, the more you explored, like an open world video game, the more you dived into it, the more you discovered, and the more rewarding that experience was. So I went on to found a venue in London. It was called the Old Vic Tunnels. And then I started another one called the Vaults. And I started producing and housing and hosting work with companies like Punch Drunk. Um, Banksy built an underground cinema, the wettest, dirtiest, dankest cinema in the whole of the UK. Banksy's words, not mine, for the premiere of his film Exit Through the Gift Shop. And, what I saw there was that when you give an audience agency and an experience, that experience becomes way deeper,
Mm.
um, really kind of meaningful for them. So I've met parents of my children, and you don't actually talk about work for a long time because you're pretty much focused on the kids. So this parent at school was chatting to me, and I've known them for about 3 years. And eventually I said, oh, I started this place called the Old Vic Tunnel. And they went, oh my God. And they proceeded to tell me their experience of going and seeing one of the shows. And bearing in mind, this is like over 10 years ago, they could give me a blow by blow account of everything they did in a like 3 hour window. And I don't know about you, Matt, but I can't remember what I did, last weekend, last night, let alone something that happened over a decade ago. So I really understood the power of designing immersive experiences where you put the audience at the heart of that experience and you give them agency. You give them an opportunity that when they do something, there's a reaction. And so that was the birth of the department. We call ourselves the first immersive agency. And really, there's a lot of marketing agencies, experiential agencies, but the true DNA of our agency is really about putting the consumer at the heart of the experience.
Mm.
Experiential, it almost sounds like you get to taste it or touch it, but you're not inside it. And so everything that we've done in the decade plus that we've been running has been by and large with that kind of ethos and DNA. How can we put the consumer in the heart of the experience? And, it's been incredible. Yeah, a decade in, We've worked with Lexus, Toyota, Williams F1 Racing, BMW, Mini, and that's just the car brands. Sporting wise, we've worked with FIFA, we've worked with UEFA, Champions League final, directed that twice. So there is this real desire out there for experiences that can put the consumer at the heart of it.
Yeah. So that's absolutely fascinating. Now, from my previous experiences in this field, what I found is that sometimes art and commerce don't quite marry. And when someone's come from a creative background and they're not completely commercial, when they're into producing great content, they don't necessarily know how it works with a brand. You've obviously managed to marry those things very effectively because not everybody transitions from effectively working in entertainment into working into a brand environment and feeling quite safe in there. What were the challenges for you crossing that bridge to working with those big commercial giants?
Well, I mean, I guess part of it is you need to develop a thick skin. Some of the best work we've ever produced is in the bin of a Google Drive somewhere, because I didn't know at the time that I was pitching for a WPP or a publicist agency, and they needed 3 budgets, 2 from in-house agencies and maybe 1 from an external, so that they can go, here's a cost for this, here's a cost for this. And if we work with an agency that's in-house, we're keeping the revenue. So, you do need to develop a thick skin, and you do need to understand that when you are going to commit your resources, and for any startup or small boutique agency company, your staff, your time is just of such importance. And I learned that the hard way. But if you can build trust, and if you can really take the client on the journey with you, then you have a chance of being able to do something special. And I think for me, when the opportunity arose to actually kind of really convey how passionate I am, and therefore my team as well, about designing really meaningful, authentic experiences, they got that. And that's what created the opportunity for the department to produce, these extraordinary experiences that we've done, from the deserts of Saudi Arabia to private islands in the Bahamas, all over the world. They understand that when we take on a project, we do it with 100% commitment and complete passion for the cause.
You're getting the full deal with you guys, right? That's what it sounds like to me. That's fascinating. But is it, with regards to the company, you've got people inside the company that are very much embedded in the business, not just a group of freelancers, is it? Or is it?
No, I mean, I feel very lucky. We've just we've had our first child, so mother, who's taken a year off, and she's come back to the agency. We've got weddings. We've got, we're only 11 years old, and we've got employees that have been with the business 8-9 years. We're not a business that suffers a huge amount in terms of churn. When we find those individuals that feel as passionate as we do, it very much becomes a family. And we're super lucky to have that as our kind of our setup. The role probably that has the most churn would be the business development role. Mm-hmm. That is a role that does seem to have a fair amount of churn. I think that kind of individual that is always striving and reaching to hit targets, maybe the grass feels greener. But when it comes to, production creative, we've had, indeed, Emma Scott, my managing director, she started as an intern 10 years ago. Brilliant. She went to Arcadia Group. She worked in the events department there. That was Philip Green's top man, top shop, that kind of clothing empire. She came back, and I recognized this extraordinary talent, extremely complementary to the skills that I bring to the table. I've never really filled in an Excel spreadsheet. in 11 years of running the business, and she's an absolute whiz at it. And together, you know, she has steadily proved herself in every challenge that I've given her. She stepped up to that. And so now she's my managing director. She's a shareholder in the business. She's a, you know, she's a real kind of stakeholder. And I think that's incredibly important for founders to recognize that probably the best talent that you're ever going to get is not going to be the talent that you draft in, but the talent that stays with you,
Yeah.
lives and breathes the DNA of the business. And then, you know, it's like when you're growing a plant, if that plant grows to a certain size and you leave it in that small pot that you bought it from a garden center, it's not going to grow any further and it could
Yeah.
potentially die.
Yeah.
Now, what you need to do is repot it into a bigger pot, give it a bigger chance to continue growing. And that to me is like a really important tool. I don't, you know, we're not, we're not a SaaS company with, you know, huge revenues. We do well and we do great work. And my style of leadership is when I see that talent, I tend to, you know, take that talent apart and say, look, I want you to step up to a role, take a, you know, a junior designer or someone on that path and say, I think you're ready to be a creative director and I want you to grow into that role. And hopefully then the salary can catch up to where they should be.
Yeah.
And by and large, that's worked really, really well for me.
So you're obviously really proud of how you've developed your team. What other achievements are you proud inside the business? What do you hold dear? What have you done in the past that you think this is something that's absolutely fantastic that we've done?
Well, I mean, I hate talking about the situation of 2020, the COVID thing, but in a way, it really was like startup 2.0. You know, the WhatsApp group changed from the department to DEP 2.0 during the midst of that. We had a team of 35 people. We had a lovely office in the super hip Dalston, East London area. We had revenue over 6 million. We were profitable. We had a pipeline that was, you know, on a really strong trajectory. It was undoubtedly going to be the best year we'd ever had in the business. And all of that went away overnight. And so our revenue dropped from over 6 million to £137,000. Our staffing level went from 35 people down to about 6. And really at that point, you know, there were dark times there where I thought maybe, you know, we couldn't survive. Maybe what we should have done was just liquidate the business, pull all the cash out and, you know, not continue. But we had great relationships with clients. We didn't win any new business in that period. But what we did do was have strong, trusted relationships with core clients. And those are the clients we ended up working with. And that was how we built the business back. And I have to say, I feel like the lessons I learned on that phase 1 of building the business have allowed me the second time round almost, although it's the same business, to build in a much more culture focused way. I no longer insist that everyone comes into the office 5 days a week. Who does? You know, that era is gone. But I don't just hire talent that can only make it to the office in London. We've got people that work in Madrid, in France, Jersey. There is a core team that do come to our office in London Bridge, particularly as a creative driven agency. I think the creative side of things, being in the room together, that creative team. I'm dyslexic, so I love that being in the room, bouncing ideas, getting out a whiteboard, pencils, drawing, and then you can go away and you can develop that into your final presentation, pitch, whatever it might be.
So look, you're really passionate about what you do. That really comes across in spades. Where do you see the business developing? I mean, what you do, you've got a really tight USP because it's based upon your creativity, and you can't replicate strong creativity. If someone's buying into a creative vision, they're buying into that creative vision. So how are you going to drive the business forward? Is your intention to grow back to that 35 headcount again, or are you happy with where you are and just wanting to do great creative projects for businesses?
Well, I think there's two answers to that question. I learned something very valuable in the period, you know, prior to COVID. We did Facebook's Christmas party. It was 5,000 people, big budget in Dublin. We did the opening of the Women's World Cup in Paris at the Grand Palais. We had President Macron speaking, these very large scale events. Um, and although I love them, the space that COVID gave us allowed us to create an IP proposition that we took to Warner Brothers and DC Comics. We then spanned that business out and raised some investment. And so I remain a silent shareholder in that. And that model of using this extraordinary creative talent that we have to look at IP that's out there to then design something that is immersive, location-based entertainment around a strong IP feels like a really good path for the agency to do. So that will be a journey of development for me in terms of raising capital. You'll need to raise money to be able to do something. The competitive socializing, we're seeing a huge rise. So competitive socializing, I think it's grown like 400% in the last couple of years. This is things like crazy golf. Formula One have opened up the F1 arcade. There's Flight Club, which is a kind of digitized version of dance, making darts loads of fun. 180. So within that world of competitive socializing, and again, in London, you're seeing things like Frameless, which is a digital interactive gallery. You've got Lightroom in King's Cross, which is an immersive environment where you can see David Hockney's work. Tom Hanks has created a kind of 360 immersive moonwalk experience. So I think in terms of how I want to get the agency, I'm not sure that I want to hit 100, 150 employees, because I know what that will do to me. It will turn me into an out and out manager. I won't be able to have the kind of relationships and the culture that I have with the team at the moment. I will be pulled out of anything fun and that I love. But I do think, you know, as a small agency, say you have a producer, a creative, a finance, and a marketing person, any one person taking a 3-week holiday or falling ill or leaving the business creates a significant impact. And so at about 30, 35 people, you know, you've got cover across all of those roles so that you can support and develop a team, and that bumps in the road are mitigated. So for me, in terms of the agency, I see, you know, 30-ish employees producing really good work. I think there is, you know, for us, what you say no to is as important as what you say yes to. Again, I talked a little bit about resource. Maybe one of the stories that is interesting and beneficial to your viewers, Matt, when we began, we had a really strong offering. Doesn't really matter what the offering was, but it was a strong offering.
Mm-hmm.
And we were kind of inundated with budgets. And what we realized early on in our journey is, you know, a £100,000 project budget kind of takes the same amount as work as a £250,000 budget, but you couldn't deliver to the level or the standard. And so we got a lot of opportunities to work on really small 50 grand budgets. Still, you know, 50 grand is not to be sniffed at. But when you're talking about an activation or an event and you've got a set build and you've got to staff it and you've got all of those things, that money goes very, very quickly. Yes. And it doesn't go that far. Yeah. And so as a business, we made a decision to say no to everything under £250,000. And what that did was, it was scary because we had no revenue coming in. But when that opportunity came in that was of the right scale, and it was a launch for Lexus, it was starring Jude Law, it was across 3 different venues, it had 100 luxury lifestyle journalists. We had the space, time, focus to give that 100%. We won the pitch, and it became an extraordinary piece of work for us. And we therefore had a calling card that was high quality. And if you're trying to build trust with your clients, being able to show them, look what we achieved in terms of media reach, media value, the skill and creativity of the production team to execute this, high profile event. And that has had a huge impact in the business, not just that one decision, back at the early dawn of the company, but it's helped us continue to work with the likes of FIFA and Adidas and Premium because they can recognize the quality of the work we do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Choosing the right path, choosing the right type of client. There's a lot of entrepreneurs when they first start out treat all revenue as the same, and the challenge is it's not all the same. Not all the choose your clients is really important. There's a great book called Pumpkin Plan about how to find your grade A clients, and it sounds like you did that part of the journey pretty early on, which
Yeah, I mean, partly by accident, we just couldn't deal with more of these briefs that were so small and maybe not qualified properly.
yeah,
And I'm glad we took the course we did.
yeah, I think you're abs. I think that's yeah, that's it was the right thing. So what are the other big learnings that you had? Because we talked about COVID, we talked about the early part of developing the business and how you were gonna how you went down a path where you recognise what was the right thing for the business in terms of your customer profile. What other big learnings have you got to pass to me?
I've talked about my passion for it. I think, I'm a dad of two girls now. It is, as an entrepreneur, it can be all consuming. Um, and you can become very kind of consumed by things. And, meditation, breath work, things like that. Nothing, you know, I'm not working for the NHS. I'm not saving lives. And as passionate and as you know focused I can be on outcomes and how things have gone, um, making sure that I don't get too bogged down in the projects issues. There will always be issues. How you tackle them, how you hold your head up high, how you kind of move forward is important.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's the everyday of running a business. But are there any specific challenges that you'd like to relay that you went through? So you went through COVID, you've gone through growing and developing a team, you've been through those moments of flex. Is there one single moment in it where you had a real light bulb moment when you said, right, this is really important that we do this one particular thing? Or was there one big learning that basically pointed you in the direction that you're in now?
One of my major learnings, and there's been a hell of a lot. The main thing I think with me is that I am, I'm dyslexic, as I think I said earlier, and we now know that there are lots of entrepreneurs like myself that are dyslexic. There's great clips on social media of Richard Branson having a P&L sheet explained to him. I've just about got the P&L down. I can understand that. It's when they do the end of year accounts and I'm like, oh God, I thought I understood this. And then it's weird columns and I have to really sit down with my accountant and go, but what does that mean? I think, as a sort of founder owner, still very much in the business, um, understanding your weaknesses and what kind of complementary skills you need. I talked a little bit about my MD earlier, and recognizing what skills you have, what you bring to the table, and trying to find people that are more skilled and better at areas that you don't excel at. That to me is about like the special sauce, the ingredients, the makeup of your organization. And I think that's been one of the keys to the success we've had is my ability, not just within myself, but to look at the team and think, how am I going to complement the 5 people that I have working in the creative department? what is the skill set that's missing? Okay, well, I've got, great people doing fantastic ideas, but there isn't that technologist that knows about Unreal Engine and creating virtual reality. So is that the right hire for me? And that was a hire I made, and it's proved incredibly valuable to the business, knowing that this was a skill set we were slightly lacking. And by bringing that in, it's really broadened the scope of projects that we can undertake.
Yeah.
Uh, the the world of opportunities has vastly expanded just by one hire.
Yes.
And that's a really kind of valuable lesson for me anyway.
A kind of sliding doors moment sounds like that a little bit. Yeah, I think we've all encountered those moments, but when it takes you off into a direction that's really exciting, you do wonder what would have happened if you hadn't made that decision. Are there any moments that you look back when you think you could have made a different decision that was going to have a profoundly better outcome for the business, or are you just happy where you are right now?
Oh, that's a tough question. Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I spoke a little bit at the start about how I had a very interesting, beginning of my career. I came into the role of founder of the department with quite an interesting black book. I was, going to openings and art galleries. I was a man about town in London. And I therefore didn't take CRMs seriously. Only in the last year and a half, as I've become a dad and I have to negotiate with the wife whether I'm allowed out. I'm not just meeting my mates down the pub. It's actually like a business function thing. And I'm going to miss bedtime and dinner, and you're in charge of the kids.
Yeah.
And I've actually had a week where I've been out 3 times this week. So I'm feeling extra specially guilty, and they were all work occasions. But I don't get out that much. And I think if we had really understood the power of data, we have been successful in winning work. And that's referrals. That's probably our biggest kind of, word of mouth network referral. And what we do is so unique and so brilliant. It could be deployed by a lot more people than is in my sort of personal network.
Yeah.
And so now, having brought on board a proper CRM system, and we're only kind of maybe a year and a half into that journey, and we're probably only using about 20% of the CRM's capability. I can see that a professional approach to how we manage our data a long, long time ago, rather than just we're doing an event, stick a load of email addresses and names in an Excel spreadsheet, and then who knows if we'll ever come across that Excel spreadsheet again, kind of potluck. Whereas a CRM system, you go like, who works at BMW? There's everyone that we've ever interacted with at BMW.
Yeah.
What role are they in now? Let's have a look at them on LinkedIn. Oh, okay. I should be talking to that person. I love motorsport. He's moved over to the head of motorsport.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a big, big business mistake that I made. And sort of the power or the belief in the power of my personal network, not realizing that in a way, 30-year-old Hamish is slightly radioactive. And I mean that in the sense that it becomes maybe less and less as you get older. I don't know. But we could have done a hell of a lot more in terms of how we profile our potential clients, how we track their personal career paths, how we maintain engagement with them.
Yeah.
There's bound to be plenty of lapsed clients that if I'd had the data and a bit more kind of systemized approach to it,
Yeah.
and I was putting a call in and saying, oh God, it was absolutely 10 years ago we did that. 5 years ago we did that. It's great to see you doing so well. That might have created more opportunities for the business to continue to collaborate with those individuals, and we weren't strategic enough around that.
Yeah, that's really good learning. That's a really good share. I want to share something with you around about CRM systems. one of my colleagues was interviewing on the Business Excellent podcast the other day. He was interviewing a businessman who does quite a lot of M&A, so mergers and acquisitions. One of the first things he looks at inside a company, he'll look at the top line financials. The second thing he'll look at, CRM system. He wants to know if the CRM system is functioning correctly and if it's been utilized, because that will give him an indication about the potential worth of the business, whether it's undervalued or whether it's a very well-run machine. So if you were ever looking to sell the business for whatever reason or acquire investment in it, CRM system, anybody in M&A is going to look at that really, really, really well. So you're right to identify it. You're right to point to that as a potential growth area of your business. So well done.
Great.
Well done for being honest about it as well. Because some people just say, yeah, well, no, we're great at doing sales. And in fact, what they do is just go out and try and network. And sales is about way more than that, isn't it? It's a sales and marketing. And you're in an industry which is notoriously difficult to do, or I'll put it slightly differently. It's not notoriously difficult to do marketing in that industry. The marketing industry is terrible. The agencies are terrible at marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
It's a fantastic irony.
Yeah.
And one that, I mean, I work in an environment now where we generate sales engines for companies. We provide them with the tools to do the marketing and the sales, and we plug everything in and we show them how all the levers that they can pull. And it's really exciting. I come from a marketing agency background and we were terrible at marketing. We were terrible at marketing. So I really get where you're coming from there. And yeah, there's some real home truths.
What's your favorite CRM system?
Oh, don't get me started.
Oh, really?
This is not a conversation for now, because I can take you through half an hour to an hour's worth of pros and cons about different systems.
Well, I'm hanging on there. The other thing that happens is I think there is a tendency in business for, when you make an exciting new hire and someone's using their system that they know well, everyone's like, oh, we should adopt that one as a kind of, catch-all problem solver. Oh, you're on Asana. You should be on HubSpot. Oh, you're on HubSpot. You should be on Monday. Yeah. Oh, you're on Salesforce. You should be on Pipedrive.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's, necessarily jumping around on, it is about really sort of deep diving into, doesn't matter too much about which one it is that you use. There's pros and cons of all of them. What matters is that you actually make sure the team and yourself dedicate the time to use it properly.
That's you've taken the words out of my mouth. You really have. If there's one thing that you have to do with the CRM, is just keep on top of it, because it is your business driver. The easiest way to generate business is from previous clients. They're the ones who are more likely to buy from you. You don't have to go through gatekeepers. You don't have to build up know, like, and trust, because you've already got it. And if you're not communicating with the people who've already bought from you, then you're leaving enormous value. You have to do it. If you're going to be successful in business, repeat business is the prime driver of success. So
yeah, it's very true.
So I'm going to ask you one more question, and it's about, I mean, there's a kind of standard question about going back to your 18-year-old self.
Oh yeah.
And the pathway that you might have chosen, or the advice that you might give to yourself. But I'm actually going to ask you something different. You came from an entertainment background. So you worked with Madonna, you worked with Guy Ritchie, then you went over to LA, you worked with some absolutely incredible people over there. Do you yearn to go back to the entertainment industry? Or do you believe that you're still in the entertainment industry, but you just have a slightly different business model?
Well, the sort of thing that strikes me immediately as you say it, entertainment industry, it's all work. Some of it may be more glamorous than other, and some may appear more glamorous than others. But with everything that I've been involved with, you know, yes, there's been some incredibly exciting bits, and I'm not, you know, a software as a service sales thing where the software is being produced and it's hammering the phones and sell as many units as possible. I'm lucky that in my career I've carved a position where I am doing something that is, you know, more creative. That's the only way I could operate. But whether it was in the entertainment industry or whether it is in, you know, marketing and communications, it is still work, and you've got to be prepared to put the hard graft in.
Yeah.
So I don't really miss my celebrity phase in life. It was fantastic. It opened doors. uh, I got to see the world in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise. um, but I'm very happy to be working for myself now.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've reached the point of happiness. That's, would you say you've kind of reached that point? Uh, are you content, or are you happy because
Uh,
of the difference?
I am incredibly blessed. You know, I'm lucky to live in one of the cities in the world. I live in London. Housing is an absolute nightmare. I'm living in a lovely house, two beautiful, happy, healthy kids. So I definitely have reached a moment of recognition that, you know, the madness of my youth and my early part has paid off. And, you know, it's not to say, like, I talked about the Old Vic tunnels. This was the place where I was producing these big immersive shows. When the Old Vic told me that they were going to surrender to the lease to Network Rail at the end of 4 years, as the director of that business, they also told me I had to make 18 people redundant in one day.
Ah,
And, you know, I held it together during those 8 individual meetings, but I'd had people that had left their somewhat stable job at the Old Vic Theatre to join me at the Old Vic Tunnels, and now they were out of a job.
wow.
And they loved their time at the theatre and they adored their time at the tunnels, and seeing them cry their eyes out and, you know, pat them on the back and say, great job, you can be proud of what we've done in the last 4 years, and you've got great skills, you can have a great career. Um, that is, you know, I'm talking about it now, and it's over a decade ago. It's painful, and
I'm feeling
I
your
think
I genuinely, I am feeling your pain. I can feel it coming out. We
I
can.
think if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to go down that path, do it with your eyes open. Do it with the knowledge that it isn't going to be plain sailing. It isn't going to be easy. There are going to be the sacrifices, and we made them. You know, we'll pay ourselves on dividends. We're not on any salary, and then before you know it, you haven't paid yourself any salary or any dividends, and you're 12 months in. You're thinking, bloody hell, have I just invested all of my, you know, life savings to date in something that's going to fail? It's difficult. It's not for everyone. I look at a lot of social media now, and it's like, you know, don't work, don't work for the man. Be your own boss. Be an entrepreneur. Everyone should be an entrepreneur. Like, you know, you see these kind of 20-year-olds living the Dubai lifestyle and stuff like that. And I don't think it's quite as you might see on social media. And I don't think every personality is set up to be an entrepreneur. And I actually think there is something to be said, and it's maybe underappreciated, of taking a good job at a good company, having a salary, and having a life and a passion, whether that is kite surfing or hiking or whatever it is, and not having that thing of, you know, I was on holiday at half term the other day, and it's like, I'm secretly trying to rush all the family to get into a car so that I can drive them to the beach and I can stick a flag in the sand and be like, kids, wife, you're all happy, you're all set. I'll be gone, I'll be back in half an hour. And then you're on the business call. And if they don't leave the house in the next like 5 minutes, I'm going to be late for that business call. And I'm on a family holiday, and I can't say to everyone, you've got to leave the house or daddy's going to be late for the call, because I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for that. So you have to be prepared for that kind of, that, which is not easy. It's not, It's not a walk in the park, and I don't think it's made for everyone.
Yeah. So I'm going to take two things out of this conversation. Out of all the things that we've talked about, which has been a fair amount, we've covered quite a bit of ground. There's a practical thing that I'm going to take out, which is get on top of your CRM system. And I loved your
100%.
honesty about that. I thought that was brilliant. And the second thing is running a business isn't for everybody. And you're absolutely right. Lots of people walk into a business or start a business because they come from a technical background, or they might be managers, or they might have a creative spark about something and think they've got something they might want to change the world, or they can see an opportunity. But actually, it takes a lot more to run a business. It takes knowledge and experience are really, really useful, but you haven't got that when you start most of the time. So you've got to learn quickly, and you've got to have an open mind. You've obviously got a very open mind. So as we've gone through the conversation, what's sort of fallen into my head is the fact that I'm speaking to someone who's got a really open mind.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. You've uh, very subtly and smoothly got probably more out than I'd like to have shared. I would have liked to have played, although I'm wearing sunglasses in. I would have liked to have played it a bit cooler, but you got honesty from me, so at least that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I really want to keep in touch. I want to find out what you guys are doing. I know you've got some really cool projects coming up because of the type of thing that you do anyway. I love being in contact with creatives anyway, and you definitely are that. So look, your journey is going to be. I want to be part. I want to see the ride. I want to see as you continue. So let's keep in contact. It's been
I look
really
forward to that.
speaking to you. It's been a great open conversation, and I've really really enjoyed it. So thank you so much, Hamish. All the
Awesome.
best, and
All right.
yeah, let's speak soon. All righty.
Nice one. Thank you, Matt. Real pleasure.